Chefs of Reddit, what are some red flags people should look out for when they go out to eat? You might have to be a chef to recognize this, but my red flag is going into a busy restaurant and noticing none of the tables have food, or not many customers are yet eating. This usually means the kitchen is going down in flames. One time I noticed this and could see some food slowly stacking up in the window, but no orders coming out. I mentioned it to the server and he replied, "I wouldn't suggest ordering food." He brought our drink check and we left. He was tipped well for his honesty. Not a chef but my best friend is, and he says a large menu. Chances are a lot of things on a menu means that they are frozen. Also, it's difficult to train people to be good at making 40 different things, so the quality is going to suffer. Edit. Yes. Some places like Chinese restaurants that are different combinations of about 30 fresh ingredients are an exception. Too many menu choices. Dirty restrooms. Service staff seems meh or anxious. Not a chef but a huge ducking menu probably means you're eating out the freezer. Overworked staff. What cleaning jobs do you think are getting missed if staff are far too stretched and or unhappy at work? Former health inspector here. If there's a self-serve soda machine, go ahead and take a napkin around the inside of the Sprite clear soda available nozzle. If your napkin comes out pink, brown, or orange, skip the soda. A Sprite nozzle should come out clear. If it's pink or orange then it's slime mold. It's actually a bacteria, but that's what we called it. If it's brown, it's likely cola. But if the cola nozzle was put on the Sprite dispenser and is still brown, you know the nozzles aren't being cleaned properly. Also go ahead and look closely at the ice chute. I see green algae in those a lot. Edit. I knew someone would teach me something today. The slime mold is a protist, not a bacteria. Still not quite a mold. Closer to a fungi. Almost. Microbiology is rad. Everyone. Edit. Or a bacteria called S. Essence. Neato. Edit 3. Maybe Rhodotorula. A yeast. This is likely what all my Subway commenters are seeing. Subway still bakes its own bread, right? Weird. The microwave from Applebee's hasn't chimed in on this thread. Edit. Wow, thanks for the gold. My first time ever. Does it sound like it could be 2 or more restaurants? Example. Sushi and pizza at the same place. They can't do either well. Ask where your oysters come from. If they don't know, you don't want them. Works for most seafood. Actual former chef here. These comments saying, don't eat whatever food on a day of week because it's leftovers. This is called utilization. Specials are just that. Things that we'd rather sell than throw out. Those of us who actually know what we're doing carefully cool down and store things so they have as much menu life as possible. Only an idiot would throw away perfectly good, saleable food if it didn't sell on the first night. For my nick, people grade pending doesn't mean that the restaurant is awaiting judgment on their health inspection. It means that they failed and are given a grace period to fix their wrongs. I've heard that if you actually smell fish at a sushi restaurant, it's in your and your inside's best interest to hightail it out of there. Not a chef, but ex-restaurant manager. How happy is the staff? Do they seem like they like their jobs? If the staff are miserable, you're not going to get quality food or service. It's worth seeking out restaurants that treat their staff well. If they're treated well, they'll treat you well. Not a chef, but worked at a KFC for a while. So here's a KFC specific thing. There are 2 towel colors for cleaning used at KFC franchises. At least in American ones. No idea about others. There are yellow towels, which are intended for surfaces that cooked foods will touch, and blue towels, which are only to be used in raw chicken areas. This is to prevent cross-contamination. Cooked chicken never touches raw chicken areas, and cooked and raw areas are never cleaned with the same towels. The thing to look out for? Raw chicken areas are usually not visible from the front counter, at least in most locations I've seen. If you see a blue towel, don't eat there. Now this isn't a hard and fast rule. I would recommend asking the cashier about it if you see anything suspicious. When I went to Europe, a KFC location in Amsterdam had blue towels and cleaning solution on top of all the trash cans in the lobby. They weren't for raw chicken. They just had a different cleaning procedure there. A green flag is an open kitchen where you can see everything getting cooked. There's an open kitchen diner where I live and the food is cooler. In addition to a super large, diverse menu being a huge red flag that you're getting frozen meals run through the microwave. Watch for no substitutions. If the place makes its own food, they can sub virtually anything for anything else. While they may try to play it up as our food is perfect and we refuse to change it on moral grounds, it's almost always a sign of this was made 2 months ago and all we do is reheat it. Read Anthony Bourdain's book. He runs down a bunch. Brunch is just using up leftovers from the rush of the weekend. Generally worse quality food. Smaller menu is better. Mondays and Thursdays are typical new inventory days. Eat these days for freshest food. Only order shellfish from a shellfish restaurant. Know what a restaurant does well. Order that. There were a lot. Read his book. R.I.P. Tony. Not a chef. And more a green flag. If you're eating ethnic food and all the customers are of the ethnicity in question, then the food is probably going to be freaking awesome. Rats in the restaurant cooking food. I went to an IHOP and there were ants crawling on the walls. So I told the waitress about it and she said, "What? Again?" She could have covered that up in a better way. I was really hungry so I just moved to another table. But those pancakes were so nasty. I still love IHOP. But I just won't go to those stroke a ligature o grave o stroke a ligature e diaresis o stroke a ligature e acute o stroke a ligature o grave one next time. If you're gluten free, for whatever reason, please don't photo a from scratch Italian restaurant. Please, there's literally nothing we can do to get that out of anywhere. Thanks to the flour, it permeates the air. If you ever order something with crab, always ask what kind of crab is it, even though it might sound like a snobby question. It will reveal whether it's canned or not. My favorite answer when I went out one time was, "What are you talking about?" Clearly indicating it was not fresh. Edited. I have worked for many restaurants and been to many others. If the place has low lighting, unless it's intentional, roughly no customer activity, floors aren't clean, place smells bad, booth seats move, drinks that taste funny, not a drug joke, this is a sign that they don't clean their soda fountains or tea urns, and low quality customer service are all signs that you should look out for if you're going to eat. If a restaurant is poorly maintained, the food might not be of good quality either. If your meat or pasta, for example, has dry spots as if it was left out to dry for a good time, the kitchen is not properly covering storing their prep correctly, the walk-in is most likely not taken care of. Edit for clarity. On let's say chicken, it's still raw, someone leaves it out, it forms a skin looking almost like jerky, chewy, an orangish yellow color. That spot won't go away because someone has cooked it. Same kind of thing with pasta, but the pasta is always pre-cooked, waiting for you. There is no reason for your sensitive products to be left uncovered for that long. If the place is surrounded by cops and ambulances, you should go elsewhere. Don't complain to the remaining employees about the wait and demand a free ice cream. Late to this one, but as an ex-waiter I can't stand seeing waiting staff grabbing clean glasses at the top when handling them. I was employed by a national pest control service, and the salespeople told me if the dining room is dirty or gross, do yourself a favor and walk out cause their kitchen is gonna be much dirtier. There are also roaches at expensive restaurants, the same as there are at cheaper places. It's the restaurants that don't clean kitchens properly that attract pests and have continual problems. This entire thread is basically Kitchen Nightmares by Gordon Ramsay. Very binge worthy, but the UK version is so much better than the US one. Asked my mom, who was a chef for 30 years. This is what she told me: you're better off sticking to restaurants you know are good if you can. Find a place you know is doing things right and give them your business. But if you need to find a new place, like if you just moved cities or something, order a food you know pretty well. For me, that's always the soups. Mom did soups for a good chunk of her time as a chef. If it's something you know really well, then you'll know if it's good or not, and if they do that well, then the rest of the food should probably be alright too. But if something's wrong with your order, like it's too salty or undercooked or whatever, then there's something wrong with the restaurant. She also said that while a low price isn't indicative of a terrible restaurant, be wary of places that price too high or low for the type of food they serve. A burger place shouldn't cost you more than $15 for a meal, and even that's being generous. And if your fine dining experience is running less than $10 a plate, something is wrong. Former barista and assistant manager here. If the restaurant has a coffee machine visible, take a look at the steamer. If it's covered in white, means they don't clean after frothing the milk. Most likely they don't run steam after heating up the milk, meaning that there is residual milk inside the nozzle of the steamer, which gets burnt and generates bacteria. Don't order coffee in there. Also, most likely the cloth used to clean the steamer from time to time is disgusting and used for more than just wiping the milk out of it. A restaurant with a good philosophy about health and safety cleans the coffee machine every night. I wasn't a chef, just a humble stock boy, but I can say this, a good amount of hot food isn't truly kosher halal, and a lot of seemingly vegan food isn't. 9 times out of 10, it's a result of ignorance. A skillet that made sausage during the breakfast shift might not have been washed before being used to blacken chicken or saute vegetables for lunch. Simple mistakes that can be attributed to human error and shift changes. 1 time out of 10, it's a result of necessity and space. 2 meats might share a tray due to a lack of space. This is more a result of the menu dictating the kitchen, instead of vice versa. If you live by strict, voluntary, dietary restrictions, dine as such. Kosher restaurants, halal restaurants, and vegan restaurants will always beat one restaurant with kosher halal vegan options. If the head chef is crying and not wearing any clothes, it's probably best to move on. Just pop your head in the kitchen if you aren't blasted with 120 dB of yelling you're in the wrong place. If there's a funky smell that's even slightly, or stronger, urine-like, the restaurant probably has a rodent problem. Best to leave. If you can't see their health inspection score posted out in the open, it's probably not very good. I'm not sure how it is for other states, but some googling around and you can view most restaurants' scores online for free. Sick waitstaff. If restaurant owners encourage their waitstaff to work while sick, or don't help to find a replacement, you can count on getting sick too. Ex-husband was chef. We always left if he saw workers not wearing non-slip shoes. He says that's super important, and if they don't care about that, he doesn't even want to know what that kitchen looks like. If the dining room that you can see is dirty, the kitchen you can't see likely is as well. Specials are typically food they are trying to get rid of. Sometimes this stuff has been in the freezer for months. Other times it might be on the borderline of expiring. Positive story. 20 years ago, before good Mexican food was available outside the Southwest, I had a business trip to California. I walked into a restaurant under an overpass near Oxnard. The fellow behind the counter saw that I was Anglo and called over his shoulder into the kitchen. A 10-year-old or so kid comes out and asks me what do I want to order and translates for his dad. Best Mexican food ever. A friend of mine said that in his restaurant they usually reuse the vegetable garnishes from previous customers if they didn't eat them. High turnover usually means poor management, and that means unhappy employees. Unhappy employees means that they don't give a rip about you or your food. I worked at a Pizza Hut and was on my 3rd GM. I worked there for a year at that point and was the longest working employee. The GM wasn't the best person, but he could manage the store. We didn't like him for a number of reasons. Racist, misogynist, slept with an employee while his wife worked there, etc. But he managed the store well and the turnover wasn't that high. Well, he got fired a couple months later and his assistants took over. Everyone liked her and wanted her to have the position, but she sucked at management. So much that we started to not like her. It was so bad. I left before it got too bad, but checked in recently and they had 13 people out of 20 quit or put in for 2 or so weeks. Management plays a big part in turnover. Not totally them as a person, but how they run the store. So bad management equals bad food. Dirty menus. If you can't keep them clean, nothing else is going to be clean. If it's within an hour of the establishment closing, don't order anything that requires the use of the kitchen. Not a chef but pest control, so I'm in and out of multiple restaurants all day. And I can tell you this, 95% of quick serve fried chicken places are vomit inducing. Particularly one based with an old guy as its mascot. My friend is a sous chef and has worked in small restaurants and some of the fanciest restaurants. She said that all restaurants break health codes at some point. All have an employee that doesn't wash their hands or picked up your steak off the floor and served it to you. It's not always the restaurant's fault. Good restaurants will fire the itty employee. The bad ones won't even notice. So, if you don't want to be exposed to health code violations, stay home. Not necessarily a red flag, but a warning. A clean dining hall don't necessarily mean a clean kitchen. If your food comes to you really fast, it most likely means it's pre-made and not fresh. Like faster than it should take to cook. A salad in a minute or two is okay. But with hot chicken in that same time is a bad sign. If you can order a bacon and egg breakfast and be eating in under 2 minutes, it's pre-made. Had this happened before to me. Does the sign out front say Applebee's? Not a chef, but I do work in a restaurant dishwashing and doing prep. Avoid ordering fish that a server is pushing when the specific fish itself isn't one of the specials. That's because there's a good chance that the fish is about to expire and they're trying to get it used up. I once saw a cook eating in the food court outside his restaurant. He picked up the hem of his apron and blew his nose on it. I would say that was a red flag. They can't do your steak rare. The toilets are gross. They use reusable wooden chopsticks rather than metal or disposable. They're situated in a tourist heavy area. As a former kitchen employee, big red flag is seeing a ton of high school guys in the kitchen. I've worked as a server in 5 busy Tysons Corner, Virginia restaurants, and personally I never want to eat out ever. A slow restaurant is serving old or bad food and a busy restaurant does not clean anything well enough. When people are not being paid a living wage, don't trust them with your life. The ease and convenience of going out to eat comes with so much more than just a high price. Number $2 an hour employee or 16 hours a day employee will care as much about your health and well-being as you do. Not a chef, but if there is a red flag in your food, do not eat the flag. My 2 biggest red flags are anything with a really large menu. If you have that many items, chances are you don't do any of it great. Any big space that's empty during a rush period. Honestly, I know you shouldn't always group think, but everyone is choosing to stay away. There's probably something to it. Not a chef, but I install POS systems all over and I've found that the setup in the outside service area typically matches the kitchen. That is, if you look around and everything is disorganized, dirty, etc. That's probably what the kitchen looks like. Look for loose wires under the counter if you can see it, and the service stations. My dad would always walk in and ask to see the menu and then ask to use the bathroom before deciding on whether or not we would actually eat there. Going to the bathroom often means a walk through or near the kitchen, which gives you a bit of a window into the cleanliness, and in the bathrooms themselves can tell you a lot about the overall standards of the place. I think he turned down at least 2 out of 3 places on average. I would say be nice to your server bartender and listen to their advice. I've been bartending at my current restaurant for 6 years, and while I love the place, there are things I won't eat. My chef is allergic to seafood, but we live in a seasonal coastal tourist town, so seafood is a must. For guests that are nice, respectful, I will gently steer them away from seafood dishes. If you're a D, have a dip buddy. 1. If you order a burger sandwich with beef and they don't ask how you'd like it cooked, probably means it's preheated. 2. As for desserts, if some say homemade and some don't, avoid the non-homemade. It's probably been in the freezer for a week. 3. If the staff doesn't know the menu well, it's because they don't eat the food, which can be a bad sign. I work at a restaurant and it's fucking disgusting. I don't even know where to begin. One time the owner picked the nub of a carrot out of the garbage and told me to use it for soup. I didn't. I watched the head chef handle raw fish, pork, chicken, shrimp, all of it, wipe his hands on his apron, and start handling knives and vegetables. One time our former head chef shoved a hot dog down his throat, shot it back up, called it the hot dog trick, then served it to a child. Our former sous chef used to have sex with the dishwasher in the bathroom. Not was his hands. The soap dispenser in the staff washroom was always empty. Only the kitchen dispenser had soap. And go back to cooking customers' food. All of this, and our restaurant is considered the best and classiest restaurant in town with a Google Maps rating of 4.3 stars and over 200 reviews. I don't mean to ruin anyone's experience, but sometimes there are no red flags. Green flag. There is this one restaurant in town where the local food inspection board goes for lunch meetings. Don't be the first table. Don't be the last table. In fact, never be the last table. We've all been here for hours in a hot smoky kitchen without breaks, and you'd like entrees and mains 5 minutes before closing? Dude, your meal isn't getting looked after, it's getting fired as quickly as possible. If you're interested in the special, have it Monday. That's waste that's getting reheated. Skip if it's midweek. If you want a burger, go to a burger bar. If you want tapas, go somewhere Spanish. etc etc. Don't turn up at an Italian place and ask for French dressing. I am seeing a lot of the no large menus call outs here. For the most part I agree. However, there are two late 70s restaurants here in Seattle that had very large menus. 13 Coins and Boondocks Sundukas and Green Thumbs. Both had the open line counter and were saute station heavy. So any number of interesting things could be done with inserts of raw ingredients and various meats. Pounded veal and some garlic shallots and mushrooms, all fresh and prepped for the meal service. For one example, you can do veal parm, veal scallopini, veal piccata, veal marsala, and then use chicken breasts to repeat, but with chicken. And if you are good at your planning, it is all fresh and tasty. Have some prepped espagnole for a brown sauce base and some simple white sauce base, and then you can simplify and expand with different bits added to the sauces. My point is, a large menu is not always a negative and can be done well and not requiring a microwave at all. You just need a line that actually knows how to cook. It only gets scary when seafood is not your mainstay and you have a lot of different fish dishes and you are somewhere in the Midwest. If you can smell the fryer from outside the building, get back in your car and drive on. If they don't maintain the fryer oil, they don't deep clean at all. Nifty tip: if you have to go to the bathroom soon after you eat, you have low-level food poisoning. Now think of the last place you ate that didn't happen. That's a good restaurant. Sadly, they are truly few and far between. That's how Gordon Ramsay made so many episodes of Kitchen Nightmares. It not a chef, but I worked at a fast food joint for 3 months in high school, and let me tell you, if the restaurant is dirty and everything within it looks like it, the food sucks too. Like, wow, what a life pro tip. The McDonald's ice cream machine is never broken. The employees just say that because they don't feel like making McFlurries every 5 seconds for everyone who comes in. Or it's just being cleaned. Source: my friend worked at McDonald's. I'm a culinary specialist in military and cooked in restaurant even before military. Red flags: chicken is a red flag. Cross-contamination is always happening with that and nobody can cook it right, and I'm betting they don't use thermometers. 165. Meatloaf is another one. Even us in army, we F up meatloaf, and I know how much of a pain it is to even making it. So many things can happen. Don't eat chicken or meatloaf. Not a chef, but according to Wheel of Time and other fantasy novels I've read, a skinny innkeeper is a bad sign. Make sure you are eating someplace where the chef likes her own food enough to be fat. If the menu is 20 pages long, leave.